Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the COVID-19 Support Package webinar for accounting and tax practitioners. My name is Felice Ketenji. I'm a Director of Program Delivery at Service New South Wales, and I'll be your MC for the night. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet this evening. I'm joining you from Tharawal land, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. I'll start with some housekeeping and then we'll run through an agenda. There'll be some time for covering questions that you've been submitting, which you can see on the right-hand side of your screen. Thank you. We've received quite a lot of questions already. But to start off, in terms of the agenda, we'll run through some of the key items that we just want to pay attention to. Your questions will be moderated, so we've got a team online at the moment who'll be working through those questions. Some of them will be answered in the chat, and then we'll try and respond to the other questions in our Q&A section later on in the session. The session is being recorded and will be posted to the Service New South Wales YouTube channel. I'll commence by introducing Michael Gadiel, Executive Director at Treasury for Economic Strategy. He'll commence with a presentation now, and we'll follow up with a short presentation by Bridget Barrett, Executive Director, Service New South Wales for Business, and then we'll have our panel, who I'll introduce separately, to go through some of the Q&A. So I'll hand over to you now, Michael, for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Felice. And thanks for the opportunity, everyone, to speak here today. These are challenging times for business, but also for individuals. And so that's why Service New South Wales and New South Wales Treasury have teamed up to try to deliver support to business, to those businesses that need it. We know this has been an evolving and worsening crisis, with public health orders first issued on the 26th of June. At that time, we were hopeful that there would be a short lockdown followed by a lifting, but we did scramble to set up a set of business support programs for that period. But since then, the lockdown has lengthened and the restrictions have intensified. And as that situation has evolved, Treasury has sought to bring new programs to bear, and Service New South Wales has scrambled to deliver those programs across a broad range of businesses. So the purpose of these programs is to support the economy. It's to get cash into businesses. The purpose is to help ensure that businesses can survive the lockdown, and also to encourage businesses to maintain the relationships with their employees so that they can continue or be ready to continue to trade when conditions return to normal. So, quick potted history. The 29th of June, we first announced the small business grants. They were set up, that was also in tandem with the tourism and hospitality grants scheme, and they were subsequently extended to become small and medium business grants. On the 13th of July, we announced the JobSaver scheme, and that was set up to fund businesses with a turnover of up to $50 million. So the smaller business scheme really capped out at a payroll of $10 million. The broadened JobSaver scheme was to include businesses up to 50 million turnover, and was also combined with some support for the tourism and hospitality industry, and also some extensions to the Commonwealth Disaster Payment Scheme. Finally, the most recent announcement was the expansion to JobSaver on the 28th of July, and that extended the JobSaver scheme eligibility to businesses with a turnover of up to 250 million a year, and increased the maximum payments to 100,000. So with each of these new announcements, new challenges have emerged, and we know from the JobSaver experience, we had around 4 versions of JobKeeper, and each time the Commonwealth had to iterate and refine as edge cases and specific examples of challenges emerged. And this has been the case for our programs also. With those three announcements, each time we've moved to get guidelines published and then to iterate those guidelines as special cases have emerged, and we've tried to accommodate them. So where we're at today is three streams of programs for businesses, or three mainstream schemes. The first is the business grants. They are set up to support businesses who were impacted during the first 3 weeks of the lockdown. So that's the period from 26th of June through to 17th of July. And they provide three tiered levels of support: a $7,500 grant for businesses with a turnover decline of 30% or more, a $10,500 grant for businesses with a turnover decline of 50% or more, and a grant of $15,000 for businesses who experienced a decline of 70% or more. And that program was very much like the programs the state had rolled out in 2020. And so it looked and felt a lot like past business grants programs. It was targeted to SME type businesses. From week 4 of the lockdown, things changed, and the Commonwealth had made the decision that it was not going to reinstate JobKeeper. And so we worked with the Commonwealth to set up JobSaver, of which the Commonwealth is now funding 50% of the cost. But unlike JobKeeper, JobSaver is being administered by the state, and Service New South Wales has stepped up to deliver that and has scrambled to set up a program, an enormous program from scratch, to try and get payments out to businesses. So it was clear to us that with an extended lockdown, it wasn't sufficient to provide flat rate grants, that we would need to provide week-to-week ongoing support to ensure that businesses were able to survive. And so we've aligned payments to businesses to 40% of their weekly payroll. The minimum payment is $1,500 a week, and the maximum payment now is $100,000 a week. And it's open to businesses with an annual turnover of between $75,000 a year and $250 million a year. And we'll get to some of the detail on that a bit further along. It is also open to non-employing businesses, and those businesses are entitled to a payment of $1,000 a week. And the point to note that if a business is non-employing and there is a person associated with that business who is deriving income from it, then that income, that business or that person has the choice to accept the JobSaver payments or the individual COVID disaster payments, but not both. So if you're not an employee but deriving income from a business, you must either go down the individual pathway, which is the Commonwealth's COVID-19 disaster payments, or you must go down the business grant approach, which is, in this case, JobSaver. And this division between individuals and businesses becomes even more acute when we move to the third scheme, which is the micro business grants. And that is set up to support businesses, much smaller businesses, with a turnover in the range of between $30,000 and $75,000 a year. And for this particular group, we know there are a lot of sole traders. And again, the individual, if they are an individual who's deriving income from that business, a non-employing business, must make the decision whether or not they go down the COVID-19 disaster payment route or the business grant route. But in this particular case, for the micro grants, the payments are aligned. The payments up for the micro grant package, which is equivalent to the most recent update to the COVID-19 disaster payments of $750 a week. So, and that program is again a program extended out for the duration of the lockdown to the 28th of August. Applicants for these second two payments, if you apply for JobSaver today, you will be backdated payments to the 18th of July. And if you apply for the business micro grants, you'll be backdated payments to the 26th of June. The business grants is a bit different because that was set up only for the first 3 weeks of the lockdown, and so it closes a little earlier, but you can still apply for it, and you will be paid for the period of 26th of June to 17th of July. So that's, sorry, I've got some information down at the bottom on the individual COVID-19 disaster payments. And I include that because when giving advice to businesses who have to make that choice, we need to make the comparison as to what someone would receive taking the disaster payment route versus what they might receive under the business grant route. So moving on, so starting with the business grants. So these were initially just small business grants, but they now take in medium-sized businesses as well. And so they're for businesses with a payroll of up to $10 million a year or a maximum turnover of $50 million a year. Almost all businesses that are eligible for this scheme will also be eligible for JobSaver. JobSaver there are a wider range of businesses that will also be available for JobSaver. So in terms of applying for this package, it's worth noting that there really are two streams of application. One is for businesses in highly impacted industries, and these include businesses that we know have been shut down as a result of the orders. So businesses like personal services, a lot of the tourism and hospitality industries we know are highly impacted. And we also know that a lot of retail is highly impacted. So if you're one of those businesses and you fall into the ABN is classified into one of the ANZIC codes aligned with that highly impacted list, then there is a lower documentation requirement for the application. So they'll need to submit evidence of turnover to determine that the business fits within the turnover range